morning and thank you for joining us. My name is Rebecca Lin Tan and I am coming to you live from the Straits Times Newsroom where we will be bringing you live coverage of the Trump-Kim summit as events unfold. You can watch us on our website, straitstimes.com, on Facebook and on YouTube. US President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong Un are slated to meet in about 1.5 hours at 9 a.m. at the Capella, Singapore, on the island of Sentosa. And our ST team is on the ground, located at various locations, including the International Media Center at the F1 Pit Building and, of course, the summit venue. Once again, thanks for joining us. And this is our live video broadcast of the Trump-Kim summit. Also, do follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for all the latest updates. And if you're not already a subscriber, register at stsub.sg/TKS, which stands for Trump-Kim Summit, for access to all our premium content for a limited time. Of course, as I mentioned before, today is the historic meeting between US President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong Un. They are expected to exchange greetings and meet for the first time at 9 a.m. and thereafter retreat to a one-on-one session with just their interpreters at 9:15. They will speak for about 45 minutes and thereafter there will be an extended bilateral meeting at 10 a.m. And thereafter the delegations will likely engage in a working lunch. Now the on-again, off-again, now on-again summit was confirmed only weeks ago. The venue was announced on Twitter by White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders on June 5th. My colleague Tan Don-Wei has been at the International Media Center since early this morning. She's put together a piece for us.
It's not even 4 in the morning, and a few of us are gathered here at the International Media Center at the F1 Pit Building, where we are waiting to be taken to the Capella Hotel on Sentosa Island, where in just a few hours, United States President Donald Trump will be meeting North Korean leader Kim Jong Un and shake his hand for the first time. This media center, which is open round the clock, has been buzzing with activity over the last 2 days as journalists from around the world gather here to report on this historic summit between the US and North Korea as they try and come up with a denuclearization plan. While it is still relatively quiet, in just a few hours, journalists will be filing in and watching on these big screens as history is being made. The first meeting between a sitting US president and a North Korean leader. Last night, the White House said that discussions between the US and North Korea have moved more quickly than expected. And Mr. Trump is expected to meet Mr. Kim one-on-one with just their translators alone this morning at 9 o'clock. That would be followed by a bilateral meeting and then a working lunch at 11:30. Mr. Trump will also speak to the media at 4 this afternoon before he makes his way to the Paya Lebar Air Base, where he will be bound for home on Air Force One at 7 this evening. Not much is known about Mr. Kim's schedule today. We hear that there have been reports that he might leave today for Pyongyang, but there's not much information coming out from that camp, so we're not even sure if he will be making a statement at all today. As expected, security at Sentosa and around Capella is going to be extremely tight today, and we've been told that once we get on the bus and get to Capella, we will be subject to very stringent checks at the hotel. Indeed, journalists that have been given access to the summit venue is a very small number, so we will try our best to bring you the latest from Capella. Do follow our live blog at straitstimes.com.
Dawn is now at the summit venue waiting for US President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong Un. We are expecting the motorcades of the two leaders to leave for Capella, Singapore from their respective hotels at about 8 a.m. this morning, which is in about 25 minutes. But to bring you up to speed on what's at stake, here's a report that I did that answers some questions, including why Singapore was chosen as the summit venue. A historic meeting between the United States and North Korea is set to take place on June 12th in Singapore. It is viewed as one of the most controversial summits to take place since the end of the Cold War. US wants North Korea to give up its nuclear arsenal, while North Korea wants a guarantee of its own security before it agrees to denuclearize. Previous US administrations had been pressing for Pyongyang's complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization, better known as CVID. But the current administration seems to have softened on its stance. US President Donald Trump said recently that he never said it goes in one meeting, adding that it's going to be a process.
I've never said it happens in one meeting. You're talking about years of hostility, years of problems.
Even so, it seems that what the Kim regime prefers is a phased approach with sanctions lifted early. In any case, North Korea wants to be recognized as a full-fledged sovereign state and legitimate power. It is also seeking economic prosperity. So the key question is what the US will settle for and what Mr. Trump will give Mr. Kim Jong Un in return. The terms and scale of their pact remains to be seen. 2 words: nuclear weapons. North Korea has engaged in the development of nuclear weapons and ballistic missile technology. And while the North ratified the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty in 1985, it withdrew from it in 2003, citing US aggression for its decision. It then carried out its first nuclear test 3 years later. The sanctions are targeted at ending North Korea's weapons program, but how effective they have been is another issue. No peace treaty was signed at the end of the Korean War, which peaked from 1950 to 1953. The war was suspended with a ceasefire agreement and never came to a formal end. North Korea wants reassurance that it won't be attacked again and that its leader won't suffer the fate of Iraq's Saddam Hussein or Libya's Muammar Gaddafi. Mr. Kim views the US as an existential threat because the US not only conducts military drills with South Korea, but also stations 30,000 troops there. So, in a nutshell, that's why North Korea has been developing and holding on to nuclear weaponry. Why Singapore? Neutrality and security. Those were the reasons cited by the White House's Principal Deputy Press Secretary Raj Shah. Plus, Singapore also has close diplomatic ties with the US and has established relations with North Korea. Did you know that we have a North Korean embassy on our soil? Our country has hosted other significant events too, including the 2015 meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and then Taiwanese President Ma Ying-jeou. We have also hosted ASEAN summits as well as the annual Shangri-La Dialogue. Of course, the substance and agenda of the summit is still unknown, but topics that will likely be discussed include that of denuclearization, which the US has reiterated time and time again, a possible formal end to the Korean War, a declaration of peace because nothing was signed at the time. Another point of discussion may be the possible lifting of sanctions against North Korea. And there could also be discussions over human rights, which, and I'm quoting Mr. Trump here when he says they could be and probably will be on the cards. As mentioned earlier, we are waiting for the highly anticipated meeting between Trump and Kim at the Capella, Singapore. They are scheduled to meet at 9 a.m. and thereafter retreat for a one-on-one session with no one but their interpreters. Then there will be an extended bilateral meeting and a working lunch. And if you're just joining us, my name is Rebecca Lintan and I'm coming to you live from the Straits Times Newsroom. This is our live coverage and video broadcast of the Trump-Kim summit as events unfold. Our ST reporters are spread out across the island and located everywhere, including the summit venue and on Sentosa, as well as at the International Media Center. My colleague Haryanto Diman is waiting there right outside Capella, Singapore. We're going to cross to him.
Well, thank you, Rebecca. Now, certainly a very good morning to all of you. And it may seem like any other day right here in hot, sunny Singapore, but the historic summit between US President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong Un will take place right here at Capella, Singapore. Now, we were among the first few media who were here at approximately 5 a.m. earlier on, and alongside the Korean and Japanese media as well. Other members of media started streaming in at approximately 6 a.m. and you can can see right behind me, all the media have lined up the road, and we're just about 200 meters opposite of Capella, Singapore. Now, the location, Capella, Singapore, has been announced as the location of the summit by White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders just last week. Now, among the reasons that this location has been chosen is because of the scenic background that it offers. But of course, it comes with several security challenges. Now, even though there is just one access point via land into Sentosa, it is out in the open waters. Now, the Police Coast Guard have also been activated to ensure that they safeguard our security on the coastlines. Now, right here on this island, security measures are out in full force as well. There are several police officers and the authorities have peppered right here on the island to make sure that security checks are being done on all the cars that come in. And as you can see right behind me as well, the police officers have lined along the roads to make sure to keep the media off the roads and of course to keep us safe. And it is indeed a very lovely Tuesday morning right here to have this summit at Capella, Singapore. And back to you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Haryanto. Now, Singapore was chosen as the summit venue for two main reasons, said the White House Deputy Press Secretary Raj Shah. And those two reasons were that of neutrality and security. And having the summit at Sentosa also means less disruption in the CBD area, our Central Business District, and the Orchard Road area. But of course, security on the leisure island has been ramped up significantly. Coast Guard, patrol, and Singapore Navy ships were spotted along the coast of Sentosa in the lead up to today's summit. Both Mr. Trump and Mr. Kim arrived on Sunday to much fanfare. Mr. Kim arrived in the afternoon and landed at Changi Airport, while Mr. Kim's Air Force One landed at Paya Lebar Air Base. Here's a story that we did on Sunday.
US President Donald Trump waved as he stepped out of Air Force One at Paya Lebar Air Base, where he was welcomed by Foreign Affairs Minister Vivian Balakrishnan. The plane touched down at about 8:30 p.m. on Sunday, 2 days ahead of the historic summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong Un. The meeting will be held at Capella Hotel in Sentosa on Tuesday. Mr. Trump was accompanied by the White House press corps and staff. Shortly after, his convoy of up to 50 vehicles made its way to Shangri-La Hotel, where Mr. Trump will be staying. Earlier today, Mr. Kim also arrived in Singapore at about 2:30 p.m. He flew on an Air China plane that landed at Changi Airport. Soon after, Mr. Kim's motorcade of about 35 vehicles left for St. Regis Hotel, where he's staying. On Sunday evening, Mr. Kim called on Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong at the Istana. PM Lee will meet Mr. Trump on Monday.
And if you're just joining us, thank you. We are coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom with live coverage of the Trump-Kim summit as events unfold. Our ST reporters, photojournalists, and videographers are stationed across the island to capture the best of what's happening on the ground. Now let's cross to my colleague Sean Lee Miller, who is located at the International Media Center at the F1 Pit Building for some live updates over there. Over to you, Sean. We're having some difficulties at the moment, but Sean will...
Good morning and welcome to the International Media Center at the F1 Pit Building, which was a buzz of activity from as early as 6 a.m., being the base for journalists covering the Trump-Kim summit. The center occupies 3 stories and takes up some 23,000 square meters with a broadcast center, workstations, and media briefing rooms. It is expected to host more than 2,500 journalists, 80% foreign media from agencies like NHK in Japan, BBC in UK, and journalists from North and South Korea. This is the biggest news event our island has seen with international interest since the Xi Jinping and Minzhou meeting in 2015. The IMC opened on Sunday as journalists and representatives gathered to collect their media passes and set up their workstations. Media here can expect to get live video feed and high-speed internet to follow their stories. This is one of 4 media rooms, which altogether can hold around 2,000 people and where journalists can catch all the action live on screens like these. The F1 pit building is used to house journalists covering the annual F1 night race in September. It was built in 10 months after construction started in 2007. SD understands the White House media is stationed at JW Marriott at South Beach, while Korean media KBS is at Swiss Hotel, the Stamford. Media here will be shuttled to various locations under media pooling. The distance from the media center to Capella, Singapore is around 9 kilometers. Back to you, Rebecca.
Thanks, Sean. And as you heard from Sean, who is on the ground at Marina Bay, the media center is expected to house some 2,500 to 3,000 journalists from around the world, and most of whom have been spilling into the 24-hour media center since 10 a.m. on Sunday. Airport ground handler and food firm SATS says that it expects to serve 7.2 tons of food as well as 7,000 meals. Let's have a look at this video of the yummy, yummy food. And as you can see there, items on the buffet menu include kaya toast, a coconut jam with our own local style coffee from coffee chain Yakun, as well as a myriad of delights and desserts. The center provides breakfast, lunch, tea, and dinner round the clock to feed our hungry journalists. There's everything from sandwiches to soup, as well as live stations serving our local delights, you must try them, chicken rice and laksa. There's also a special commemorative kimchi ice cream, as well as other cuisines ranging from Vietnamese to Italian. So right now, we're just going to break for a little moment, but we'll be right back with you shortly. Welcome back from our break, and what we are going to cut to are live images that are what's happening right now outside Capella, Singapore, the summit venue where the two leaders are slated to meet at 9 a.m. this morning. which is one of Singapore's swankiest days. The hotel, which opened in 2009, was designed by renowned British architect Norman Foster. It was restored from buildings that used to house the British officers of the Royal Artillery and their families in the 1880s. It has 112 guest rooms and villas that face out onto lush vegetation and the South China Sea. The Capella Singapore is nestled amid the greenery of Sentosa, a resort island formerly known by the grim moniker of Pulau Belakang Mati, which in Malay means Island of Death from Behind. Its current name, Sentosa, means peace and tranquility in Malay, appropriate for this historic peace summit. Sentosa is connected to the mainland, as you heard from my colleague Haryanto earlier, by road, monorail, and pedestrian boardwalk, as well as cable car. The Capella Hotel Group is owned by the Kui family of Pontiac Land Group, who are also behind the Ritz-Carlton Millenia Singapore, as well as Regent Singapore. You were just watching some footage of the beautiful Capella Singapore Hotel on Sentosa Island. And if you're just tuning in, thank you very much. This is ST's live video coverage of the Trump-Kim summit as events unfold. And if you're not already a subscriber, register at stsub.sg/TKS for Trump-Kim summit for access to all our premium content for a limited time. And again, Trump and Kim are scheduled to meet at 9 a.m. and head into a closed-door meeting, a one-on-one meeting with just their interpreters. And Mr. Trump said on Saturday that he believes he would know within the first minute of meeting Mr. Kim if the North Korean leader is serious about surrendering his nuclear arsenal. Mr. Trump will then speak to media before departing Singapore tonight at 7 p.m. Now, it was a long road to get to today's historic summit between the US and North Korea. 18 months ago, both leaders were at loggerheads, and last year was peppered with insults from both sides. So why is this summit that will potentially discuss topics such as nuclearization, denuclearization, and the formal end to the Korean War only happening now? Perhaps it is the savvy Mr. Kim's new approach, his new diplomacy. After all, the world is now sitting up and taking notice of North Korea and its capabilities. Let's look at these issues and more in a pre-summit analysis show that we did last Friday.
Why is North Korea doing this now? Last year it was all about missile testing, saber rattling, name calling. Why the about face and why now? Audrey?
Well, I don't have a direct line to Kim Jong Un, but I would think that in a sense, right, he has accomplished what he has decided to do, which was to show that he has the capabilities, right? There was this, many missile tests and all that. So he has kind of flagged to everybody that, hey, I can do it, right? So and that got people's attention. I mean, he came in for a lot of flack, but he got people's attention. And now I think he wants to pivot to the other side, which is to develop the economy. And it's shown that it can work. Market reforms has been working at lower level, local level. And I think also, even though he is like a dictator, as people say, I think he also needs to keep his people happy. I mean, it is not a very strong economy, and if he can build it up and also reduce the reliance of the North Korean economy on China alone, then why not? This gives him an opportunity to reach out the West. Well, Trump reciprocated, and maybe his long-term plan is to open up, get more parties involved in the development of the economy.
The fact that he's chosen to shift from military escalation to diplomacy over the course of this year, beginning with his New Year's Eve speech, or New Year's Day speech, is the fact that it's a signal not of weakness but actually of strength. That because no one really gets into a negotiation or into discussions unless they feel that they're going to negotiate or discuss from a position of strength. Yeah. And he feels that he is in a position of strength. And I agree with your point. It's a signal also that he feels that his nuclear capability, his fledgling nuclear arsenal, is actually mature and operational, and therefore he can credibly threaten the United States. And the very fact that Americans also have responded in the way they have also signals that they perceive the threat to be credible. It's not a bluff, and therefore gives Mr. Kim Jong Un the clout to therefore say, let's have discussions and let's talk about other things that are of interest to us.
Now, I hope that piece has helped you better understand the significance of today's historic event. And so for those of you who are not as familiar with it, here is a snapshot that we have prepared, a timeline of events to bring you up to speed on what's happening. 2017 was the year where US President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong Un hurled heated remarks at each other. But the two seem to have made up and will meet on June 12th in Singapore. Here's a look back at their on-again, off-again relationship.
He was a young man of 26 or 27 when he took over from his father, when his father died. And at a very young age, he was able to assume power. A lot of people, I'm sure, tried to take that power away, whether it was his uncle or anybody else. And he was able to do it. So obviously, he's a pretty smart cookie.
In an interview with Bloomberg, Trump said he would not rule out meeting Kim and would be honored to do it, despite weeks of tough talk against the regime. North Korea conducts an intercontinental ballistic missile test launch on US Independence Day, July 4th. And Trump retaliates with this tweet. Trump warns that any threat by North Korea to the US will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. Hours later, North Korea threatened strikes near US strategic military installations in Guam with its intermediate-range ballistic missiles. Kim blasts Trump as a mentally deranged US dotard who will pay dearly for threatening to destroy North Korea. Trump responds with this tweet. The name-calling continues, with Trump referring to Kim as Little Rocket Man and Kim calling Trump an old lunatic. The icy relations continue. North Korea launches Hwasong-15, its third intercontinental ballistic missile test. Things have started to change this year, amid an apparent shift in North Korea's foreign policy. Kim uses his televised New Year's Day speech to call for lower military tensions on the Korean peninsula. He also emphasizes that nuclear weapons will be used only if security is threatened. Trump adds that he too has a button on his desk. South Korean envoys who met Kim released a statement saying that the North side clearly stated its willingness to denuclearize.
We will convey our President Moon Jae-in's wish to bring about the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula and permanent peace.
Trump accepts Kim's invitation to meet. Kim makes a surprise visit to Beijing to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping in what is widely seen to be a move that strengthens his leverage ahead of negotiations with Trump. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo meets Kim in Pyongyang and covers the basic outlines and ground rules for a Trump-Kim meeting. North Korea says it has agreed to suspend nuclear tests and plans to close its nuclear test site. A historic meeting between South Korean President Moon Jae-in and Kim takes place. They announce their common goal of denuclearization on the Korean peninsula. Pompeo goes to Pyongyang again to make arrangements for the summit. He returns to the US with 3 Americans who had been detained. Trump announces he will meet Kim in Singapore on June 12th. North Korea calls the summit into question. Pyongyang also cancels its talks with Seoul, denouncing the Max Thunder joint military exercises being held between the US and the South as a provocation. Hours later, the North threatens to cancel the summit should Washington continue to push Pyongyang into giving up its nuclear arsenal. Pyongyang demolishes its nuclear test site with a huge explosion. Trump calls off the planned summit. In a letter to Kim, Trump said he would not attend the summit due to tremendous anger and open hostility displayed in Kim's most recent statement.
Therefore, please let this letter serve to represent that the Singapore summit, for the good of both parties, but to the detriment of the world, will not take place.
Trump says US officials are in talks with North Korea after the North's very nice statement less than 24 hours after Trump canceled the highly anticipated meeting. Moon and Kim meet for 2 hours at a second Inter-Korea summit to discuss Kim's possible upcoming meeting with Trump. Trump announces that the June 12th summit has not changed. US and North Korean officials meet at a border truce village as preparations resume. Senior North Korean official Kim Yong-chol hand-delivers a letter from Kim to Trump. Trump announces that the summit is back on. So I hope that gave you a quick snapshot of all the events that have transpired so far. Once again, I am Rebecca Lintan, and I am coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom with our up-to-date coverage on the Trump-Kim summit. Again, our ST reporters and photojournalists and video teams are stationed across the island to cover everything that's happening on the ground. You can follow us here on Facebook, thestraitstimes.com, and on YouTube, as well as on Twitter and Instagram for all the latest updates. Of course, my colleague Haryanto Diman has been at Sentosa since 5 a.m. this morning. We had cut to him earlier, but now we're going to see what's happening on the ground there again. Over to my colleague Haryanto.
Thank you, Rebecca. And of course, we are still eagerly waiting for the arrival of the motorcades of both leaders, who are expected to be arriving at approximately 8:20 a.m. later on. Now, as you can see, members of the media here, we are all waiting in anticipation, and everyone is all ready with their gears to catch a glimpse of both leaders. For members of the public who are just concerned about coming into Sentosa, don't worry, because the roads are still open, but do expect a little bit of delay, and of course checks upon arriving in Sentosa. Other than that, it's been a cool day right here in the morning of Capella, Singapore, and like I mentioned earlier on, Rebecca, it is indeed a wonderful Tuesday morning for us to have a summit of the two world leaders. Back to you, Rebecca.
Thanks, Haryanto. Indeed, we are very glad that it is a cool day for all the journalists who are camped outside the hotels as well as the summit venue. Right now, again, our photographers, journalists are spread out across the island and covering everything on the ground. My colleague Sean Lee Miller is at the International Media Center at the F1 Pit Building, where he has been since 6 a.m. this morning. He has been sussing out what's on the ground there, feeling out the sentiment, as well as checking out the food. At Capella, Singapore. So Sean's not quite ready, but we will be cutting to him soon.
사람 다른 네.
It is also one of Singapore's most expensive hotels. And basic rooms start at about $680 a night, while a 3-bedroom colonial manor could set you back $10,000 a night. Right now, we will be cutting for a short break, but don't go away, stay with us, and we will be back shortly. Okay, so we understand that Mr. Trump's motorcade has left the Shangri-La Hotel. And while we don't know what route they will be taking, motorists suggest that they will be taking a scenic route, perhaps down Orchard Road and onto River Valley Road. And we've put together this graphic. Take a quick look. So there we go. That is a quick idea of what route they might be taking. It might be... Oh, I see now, cutting to our live feed at Sentosa, the motorcade is just coming in.
No, you cut the line. Wait. Don't wait. I go. Okay. Don't do anything. Don't do anything. Don't do anything. Don't do anything. Okay, talk.
This is Trump's team that is arriving at Sentosa. As you can see, the Beast is right there in the center of the motorcade. There are about 30 vehicles in Trump's motorcade. The Beast is actually a 9-ton bulletproof and bomb-proof car that is able to withstand a chemical attack and dozens of police vehicles. Dozens of police vehicles are also accompanying the Trump motorcade, including an ambulance, which we can see right now on the camera.
How are you? Okay. Yes, Noreen. Okay, pen. Okay, pen to Sentosa. Yeah, police. Okay. Yep. Okay, let's stay here. No coming up. Yeah, nothing else coming. Okay, back. 警察車両がやってきました。
今、車列が見えてきました。
アメリカ側の車列だと思います。
So we just saw Trump's motorcade arriving at Sentosa, driving across the Sentosa Gateway. About 30 vehicles are in his motorcade, including the Beast, which is again a bulletproof and explosion-proof car. There are two versions of that. Presumably one is a decoy. And they are arriving at the Capella, Singapore. It is 8:15 now. And the driveway is actually quite long to get to the lobby, but it is absolutely beautiful over there. So as we know, Mr. Trump and his team and his delegation are staying at the Capella Hotel, Singapore, along Orange Grove Road. In our premier Orchard Road, Tanglin Road district. Mr. Kim's team, on the other hand, is staying at the St. Regis Singapore, a luxury hotel under the Starwood Group located at Tanglin Road. And both hotels are about a 10-minute walk away from each other.
続いて多くの警察車両がやってきました。すでにアメリカ側の車はホテルの中に入っていると見られます。
we can see that it's not just journalists that are lining the road. There are also tourists as well as curious onlookers who have witnessed the arrival of Trump's massive motorcade. It is also business as usual at Sentosa. Nothing is closed, everything is open, just more enhanced security checks. As you can see, the tour buses or the feeder buses that roam around the island are in view and still running. Okay, now my colleague Haryanto is about to talk to us. He has just witnessed the motorcade, Trump's motorcade, drive past him.
Please move the bus. Help us. You can cross the road over there.
As you can see right here, because we understand that Trump has already arrived at Capella, Singapore, there is a bit of a lag in terms of traffic, and the bus that is traveling on the roads have blocked the view of the media who are trying to capture a glimpse of the motorcade that is arriving here in Capella, Singapore. And in fact, members of the media are a bit upset that they are not able to catch a glimpse of the motorcade that is arriving. We're just waiting. So we're just waiting to ensure that once the traffic is cleared, the buses and the vehicles that's passing by the road will be able to move on, and we'll be able to catch all the action that is happening just right outside of Capella, Singapore. And of course, the media officers are also trying to ease the tension a little bit here and to just make sure that everybody is just kept cool. Clearly, this is beyond anybody's control, because the roads here are not blocked. Once again, there's just a bit of a delay caused by the convoy that has just reached here, understandably so by President Trump's motorcade. Once again, we are just still waiting to ensure that the road is cleared so that we can bring to you more of the live footage right here from outside of Capella, Singapore. Back to you, Rebecca, into the studio.
Thanks for that, Haryanto. So, of course, yesterday, United States President Donald Trump also met Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong at the Istana at noon, where Trump expressed his gratitude for Singapore's role in hosting the summit between the United States and North Korea, saying that he appreciated the hospitality, professionalism, and friendship. They also had lunch there, which was prepared by Goodwood Park Hotel's fine dining restaurant, Gordon Grill. Some of the dishes that they were treated to include Angus beef tenderloin and lobster bisque, as well as a cherries jubilee for dessert. Mr. Trump was also presented with a birthday cake ahead of his birthday on Thursday, where he will turn 72. So right now we are looking at our live feed again. It seems that all the media, they are looking a little bit disgruntled because their view is being blocked because of the massive traffic jam that is occurring because the motorcade, assuming Mr. Kim's motorcade, is just about to arrive as well. So again, the cars are being banked up because they are being blocked for... Oh, my colleague Haryanto is now back on our cameras. And we see there a bus backing up behind him. Now over to you, Haryanto. We are going to be crossing to you shortly.
Yeah, as you can see, after much persuasion from the members of the media, the police have been roped in to get the vehicles to just move, to reverse behind to make sure that we can catch a glimpse of the action that is happening right outside of Capella, Singapore. Again, earlier on, the vehicles, if you have just tuned in, the vehicles, in fact, were blocking the view of the media who are trying to capture all the action of the motorcade that is arriving right at Capella, Singapore, because of a little block right upstream. But right now, after several persuasion by the members of the media, we are able to get the roads cleared so that we can have a better view for you to see the live action that is happening just right outside of Capella, Singapore.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. I love you guys. Love you guys. Also the move. Okay. Can you move away?
Sorry, can you move away, please?
Thank you, Haryanto. So as we can see, all the cars and the buses are blocking the view of the entrance to Capella, which is what the media have been staking out there since 5 o'clock this morning to get. And there are security forces on the ground across the island from the roundabout at Sentosa all the way to the entrance, which is about, I'd say about less than 50 meters from the roundabout. So presumably now we are waiting for Mr. Kim's motorcade to arrive. And all the roads have been blocked off. Great, there is some action on the bridge right now. It could be the arrival of Kim and his team. He has been seen traveling in his Mercedes-Benz Stretch, as well as a Maybach, which is a luxury Mercedes-Benz marque. Okay, we hear now that Kim's team and his entourage and motorcade are on their way. The first of the motorcycles are in. His motorcade too is about 30 cars and vehicles long. So the roads en route from the hotel to Capella, Singapore must have been cordoned off and blocked off. And because it is peak hour at the moment, it must be causing quite a traffic jam in the CBD and surrounding areas. Again, we are bringing you live footage from the Sentosa Gateway Bridge as we await Mr. Kim and his team to arrive. So this is one of our videographers who is on the ground right now outside the Capella Singapore Hotel. As we can see, everyone is waiting patiently. And we are very glad that today it is an overcast day and it doesn't seem to be too hot outside as well. So what we are looking at there is the roundabout at the entrance of Sentosa, after which the cars and the motorcade will make a right turn towards Capella. So there we can see the bikes. They have just made the right at the roundabout and are now stopping to await the arrival of Mr. Kim. Here we are cutting back to live feed on the bridge where Mr. Kim's motorcade is arriving. And as you can see, North Korean media has also cameras right out of the sunroof. Again, both leaders are slated to meet at 9 a.m. this morning at the Capella, Singapore, where they will then retreat for a one-on-one session with just their interpreters, and then thereafter hold an extended bilateral meeting with their various delegations. Once again, you're looking at the view from our Straits Times team that is on the ground right now outside Capella, Singapore.
また白バイとパトカーに先導された形で北朝鮮の車列がホテルの方にやってきました。トランプ大統領が到着してから20分ほど経っています。キム・ジョンウン委員長を乗せたとみられる車列、今カペラホテル前に到着しました。北朝鮮車両続々とホテルの方に入っています。トランプ大統領が到着してから20分ほど経っています。キム・ジョンウン委員長、北朝鮮側を乗せたとみられる今、国旗が見えました。ひときわ大きな黒塗りの車が見えました。北朝鮮の国旗を掲げています。キム・ジョンウン委員長、カペラホテルの中に入りました。まもなく30分後に首脳会談が始まります。
Hallo. Super, okay. Die Ankünfte sind jetzt durch. Ich habe eine Frage. Ich habe die beiden Ankünfte ja gefilmt. Kann ich euch das noch irgendwo auf, wohin soll ich denn das schicken jetzt? Dass ihr das auch bekommt?
Thank you, Rebecca. Now, both motorcades of President Donald Trump as well as North Korean leader Kim Jong Un have already arrived right here at Capella, Singapore at approximately 8:25 a.m. earlier on. And of course, later on at 9 a.m., approximately 9 a.m., they are slated to be exchanging greetings for the first time. Now, it is a full day for President Donald Trump today before he leaves for US later in the evening, among which he will be attending an expanded bilateral meeting as well as lunch, followed by a press conference later on at 4 p.m. Now, members of the media right here, we are still waiting for more action to happen just right outside of Capella, Singapore. And of course, the weather is holding up fine. It is very cooling indeed right here. And, we are just waiting for more action to happen here. Back to you, Rebecca.
Thanks for that, Haryanto. We are glad that it is cool over there. Now, if you're just joining us, I am Rebecca Lintan, and I am coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. This is our live video broadcast with up-to-date coverage of the Trump-Kim summit as events unfold. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and if you can watch us, we're on YouTube as well. We also have a live blog on straitstimes.com. And if you're not already a subscriber, please register at stsub.sg/TKS to get access to all our premium content, which include in-depth analyses for a limited time. So right now, we're going to use a video that we did yesterday about how business is going on as usual at the leisure island of Sentosa. Let's take a watch now.
It's one day before the historic summit between United States President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong Un. But Sentosa is still open for business. Traffic into the island is smooth.
I'm here at Siloso Beach at Sentosa. Now, it looks like any other day in hot, sunny Singapore. Both locals and tourists alike are seen taking part in the activities on this island. Some are taking shelter from the heat at the beach, while others have taken part in the attractions that this island has to offer. Although there is high security just outside of Capella, Singapore, all the other parts on this island, business is going on as per normal. Now, it clearly doesn't seem as though it is a day before the historic summit between US President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong Un.
We are here to bring our children here for holiday to Universal Studios. We're from KL. We drove in here and everything was smooth. There wasn't any security checks.
We just took the train in to Harbourfront, took the monorail over. It's not a problem at all. No security issues, nothing. It's very easy.
We were initially apprehensive about being impeded by the security measures that were put in place. But on our way here, we didn't really encounter any difficulties travelling. Largely, we just went by the boardwalk and took the monorail, and that was fine.
Yes, it's really easy. We took 10 minutes to walk from the boardway from Vivo City here. I barely see any security or anything. Everything was very smooth and all.
We are having our staycation here. So far, we have not had any checks because we entered in through RWS. So it's really good, smooth flowing, everything.
Mr. Trump and Mr. Kim are expected to meet at 9 on Tuesday morning at Capella, Singapore.
So we've just had both Mr. Kim and Mr. Trump's motorcades arrive on the island of Sentosa and drive into Capella, Singapore. The talks and their historic meeting will take place at 9 a.m., which is in about 20 minutes from now. They will be shaking hands for the first time, and this is the first time a North Korean leader is meeting with a sitting US president. After which they will then retreat for a one-on-one session. Thereafter, there will be an extended bilateral meeting at 10 a.m. as well as a working lunch. So right now we are going to take a short break, and we will be with you again shortly. Thanks for joining us.
Just that they're not prepared. あ、了解です。じゃあこっち解除します。はい、大丈夫です。なんか音が切れてたらしいので、もう一回トランプが出てくる。トランプが出てくるのは僕らの映像じゃないですね。西山さん。我々カペラホテルの前なので、会場だからトランプがホテルに入っていくところは撮ってますけど、トランプが出てくるところって多分ホテルシャングリラからなんで僕らじゃないと思いますわ。あ、トランプが入るところの音が後切れてた。じゃあちょっと再送します。あ、再生をね、言いたい。このまま再生する。了解。今大丈夫ですか？今大丈夫ですね。ちょっと待ってくださいね。また言いますわ。マイクを落とします。いや、時間用なんですけど、タイムライン用に使ってもらってもいいですか？で、時間、これよりは、
すみません、松本です。聞こえますか？松本です。あ、すみません。西山さん、じゃあ今から再生しますんで、そっち収録機回してください。はい、じゃあお願いします。はい、再生します。
Sorry, things were a bit heated just now, but I know the traffic is not up to us. I just have to explain. Yeah. So, we'll try to make things better. Give us some time. I know that your view is not great. I know you're being blocked by the traffic. Give us some time to change things around because this is a security arrangement by the security people from the different. We understand that. We are not security people. We are only media.
To think about it, the world first will send a picture from the event, and then you have to talk with them before that the roadblock is there, not there. And this is your job.
This is not our job because this is
You are working for the media of the
Just relax, okay? I think like we all get relaxed, okay? Like it's a PK day, like everyone just get relaxed.
We are trying our best, but all we ask is you don't get to tell us what our job is. We are doing what okay? You do your job. I don't tell you what your job is. That's all. Just understand? Yeah? Yes. I know what my job is. Excuse me, sir. I'm asking you very nicely. Please calm down. So just everyone, please understand we're doing our best to help. Yeah. And we will try our best. Because this is a security arrangement. It takes a while to turn around. We have 2 hours. Have some faith. We'll try something. We'll try, but there's really no sharp. It's not good for everyone. We know other fellow journalists are trying to get
Welcome back. We are now looking at our live feed. We had just now some North Koreans, we believe, who are assembling outside the lobby of Capella, Singapore. Now, according to South Korea's Yonhap news agency, Mr. Kim is accompanied by his key aides, including Mr. Kim Yong-chol, a senior official who recently met Mr. Trump in Washington to hand-deliver a letter from the North Korean leader. Now, Mr. Kim's delegation also includes Foreign Minister Ri Yong-ho and Mr. Ri Soo-young, a vice chairman on international affairs from the ruling party. According to reports, Mr. Kim's younger sister, Kim Yong-jong, who has accompanied him to the Winter Olympics as well as the Inter-Korea talks in April, is also here. So last night, North Korean leader Kim Jong Un also took time out from his busy schedule of planning the summit to take in some of the Singapore sites and our iconic sites. So right now here we have a photo of Mr. Kim Jong Un with our Foreign Minister, Mr. Vivian Balakrishnan on the left, and Education Minister Ong Ye-kung. This is a Wi-Fi which netizens on our Facebook page are saying that it could be Mr. Kim's first Wi-Fi, perhaps. So they visited the Gardens by the Bay, the Flower Dome, as well as the observation deck on the 57th story of the Sky Park at Marina Bay Sands Integrated Resort. So these here, there's a whole circus, a whole crowd of people welcoming and watching him appear, and many of them were cheering him on as well. So it seems that traffic is back to normal here outside the Capella Hotel. In the lead up to the 9 a.m. meeting, which is about 10 minutes away. Thanks again for joining us. We are coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom with our live coverage of the Trump-Kim summit as events unfold. Our ST journalists are spread out across the island on the ground, getting you live updates from various locations, including the summit venue itself and the International Media Center, as well as along the streets of Orchard Road and Sentosa. Now, the summit has also spawned other events and activities which have been a little bit more lighthearted, which include the appearance of Trump and Kim impersonators, which really look uncannily like the two leaders. So would you pay $10 to take a photo with these two?
Fans paid $10 for a photo with each of the impersonators.
I saw the advertisement on Facebook, yeah. So I thought it would be a cool thing to do, on a weekend.
I don't know, I just happened to pass by here. And then I was wondering why so many people. And suddenly I saw Trump and Kim Jong Un is there. So, no, they are not real. Come on.
Yeah, I think it looks very similar, especially from far. I think Trump is more Trump. I don't know, I think the wig is really good. And Kim's accent is a bit too English.
I think they do, especially Kim, yeah. I mean, his entire size, Yeah, his posture and all that, yeah.
They look like them, if they don't open their mouth.
So, what do the Trump-Kim impersonators think of Singapore?
My experience here in Singapore has been absolutely wonderful. I'm here in the middle of a country where capitalism is absolutely raging. Everyone is smiling. I haven't seen any despair. It's just a wonderful, wonderful place. I'm having a great time.
Singapore's great, just like Pyongyang, but with really, really good food. While we'll be visiting the House of Seafood tonight, we're going to have some chili crab.
Fans hoping to see the Trump-Kim impersonators can still catch them at the same venue on Sunday.
For more Kim Trump stories, visit straighttimes.com.
You heard it from the real Trump-Kim impersonators who tell you to go to straighttimes.com for more stories. We have a live blog there with live updates, minute-by-minute blows of what's happening on the ground. looking at live footage of Capella, and we are waiting here for Mr. Kim to exit the vehicle. Slated to meet in 5 minutes at 9 a.m. and they will be meeting for the first time and exchanging greetings. Thereafter, from 9:15 to 10 o'clock, for 45 minutes, they will be having a one-on-one session with just their interpreters before having an extended bilateral meeting with their delegations. Then there will also be a working lunch. My colleague Tan Don Wei, who is at the summit location on the ground, has given us an update. She says that after their historic handshake, the two men will walk down the corridor into the library for a tete-a-tete before an expanded bilateral meeting. She also says that there are lots of special agents on the grounds of Capella, almost always paired with a North Korean counterpart. So where there are American agents positioned, there are also North Koreans. So it seems that there are also quite a few ethnic Korean agents who will double up as translators from the US side. So Don has also said that about 10 American cameramen and photographers, as well as 5 North Korean cameramen and photographers, and 5 Singaporean journalists have been waiting for the two men to appear. And that is going to happen soon, their historic handshake in a couple of minutes, we hope. Flags of both North Korea and United States are lining the walkway there as we wait for the leaders to emerge. This morning, Mr. Trump started tweeting as early as 6 a.m. and his first tweet of the morning said, "Meetings between staffs and representatives are going well and quickly, but in the end, that doesn't matter. We will all know soon whether or not a real deal, unlike those of the past, can happen." So Mr. Trump's beast is arriving and driving up the driveway in the opposite direction to what we are used to.
Sorry? 600.
Three minutes.
I didn't touch that. But it didn't touch it. I swear. Hold it. I swear it touched it. Peter's not right. I swear.
You okay?
Tell him to indicate to them to go that way. When the leaders come to you, you just gesture that they're going to go that way to make sure so the president knows to walk that way. Thank you.
We have just witnessed history. The two leaders came out and met each other in the middle for a historic handshake.
예, 잠시만, 예.
And there you have it. That was the moment that the world has been waiting for. The two leaders have now retreated for their one-on-one meeting with no one else aside from their interpreters. And thereafter, they will have their extended bilateral meeting with their delegations from 10 a.m. We're going to stay on this live feed to keep a watch out on what's happening there, so do stay tuned. So of course, it's worth reminding ourselves that in a sense we have been here before. A similarly historic deal was struck between Washington and Pyongyang in 1994. Then, under what was dubbed the Agreed Framework, North Korean leader Kim Jong Un's grandfather, Mr. Kim Il-sung, pledged to dismantle his country's nuclear program. In return, he demanded fuel to make up for the loss of nuclear power. He also sought some light water reactors as alternatives to the plutonium reactors being destroyed, which addressed the world's concerns about the proliferation of nuclear weapons. But of course, neither side fully delivered on these promises. So right now we are looking at live footage of the media center, where journalists have just watched from the big screens and the multitude of screens located there, the historic moment and the historic handshake where the two met each other in the center, with Mr. Trump reaching out his hand slightly before Mr. Kim to greet each other. So we don't know what both sides will be talking about, but we expect denuclearization to be on the cards, as well as a potential formal declaration of the end of the Korean War, a possible lifting of sanctions against North Korea so that they can enjoy some economic prosperity, as well as potentially a human rights issue. This all remains to be seen.
I'll do it off camera. As you'd expect, all eyes were glued to the screens with cameras pointing to the TV screens and even some members of the media standing on tables for a better view. It was relatively quiet here when the leaders shook their hands aside from a stray applause and whistle or two. So did that handshake set the tone for the meeting between the two leaders? We'll get a better idea as we understand that there will be a meeting with President Trump. There will be a press conference with President Trump at 4 p.m. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Sean, for that update. There seems to be a flurry of activity that's happening at the media center. People filing stories, tweeting, social media, and also other journalists being interviewed. Okay. So this meeting marks the first time a North Korean leader, the head of the state, is meeting with a sitting US president. And it could be seen as the legitimization of his power, as in Kim's eyes, he is now seen as Trump's equal. So Kim is set to leave Singapore at 4 p.m. today, but Mr. Trump has said that he will give a press conference at 4 p.m. before leaving for the US some hours later. So one analyst has also said that if a deal is struck today, at today's summit, there will be a shift in political and economic competition on the Korean Peninsula. Of course, we don't know what they will be discussing at the summit, but as I mentioned earlier, it's likely to be topics centering on denuclearization, the end of the Korean War, a formal peace treaty to seal that, as well as potentially human rights issues and the potential lifting of sanctions. Now, this has been a very momentous occasion, and Singapore has been very glad to host it, I'm sure. And Singapore was chosen because of its neutrality and security, and we are also glad to contribute, and as Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong has put it, glad to contribute to an international endeavor that is in our profound interests. So once again, thank you for joining us with our live coverage of the Trump-Kim summit. So do log on to our website, straitstimes.com. We are also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I'm Rebecca Lin Tan.
This summit was on and off. But when you saw them meet for a deal,